Today we're going to be talking about how I sold my first apartment building in California back when I was in my early 20s, straight out of college. I had recently graduated, just give you guys some context, recently graduated from SC, accounting degree, supposed to go be an auditor. And long story short, I was still attending networking events and came across a USC alum during one of these networking events. Had a brokerage. He had his own brokerage and he had hired a handful of SC alums, USC alum. He asked me if I would be interested, right, to come in and give it a shot. Sounded sexy, right, the way he explained it to me, the way he described it to me. So I thought, sure, why not, right? At the time, I had a landscaping and construction business. Didn't really have to be there on job sites all that often, right? I had a couple of guys that I trusted, and they did most of the work. And whenever we had bigger projects, I hired more people. But I had those two guys that would supervise, right, everybody else. It wasn't absolutely necessary for me to be there on job sites, right? Mostly pretty simple stuff, landscaping, some minor construction like walkways, driveways, retaining walls, a lot of sprinklers, right, laying down sod, stuff like that. So I go to work there, right? And I think there was, if I can break down into three things that I think I did that were key to my success, right? And depending on the angle that you look at it, it could be more, right? It could be 5 or 6 or 7. But just in general, if we're gonna just break it down to 3, the first thing was that because I believed in, because he was this USC alum, I knew him from before, and he was kind of like a mentor to me. Looked up to him. He was successful, was doing well, and he was, I think, about 10, 15 years older than I was. The point is that I believed in him, and I believed in the process. I was coachable. He told me, this is what the job is, and this is what you're gonna do. When he described the job to me, it was nowhere near as glamorous, right? Once I was in the office, actually working for him, it was nowhere near as glamorous as I thought it would be, right? It just sounded cool. Commercial real estate, selling apartment buildings. And once I was there, it was not as glamorous, but I believed in him, I trusted him, and that was important, right? I was coachable. A lot of people, you tell them what they need to do to be successful, and they don't do it. Whether they don't believe in you, they don't believe in themselves, or whatever excuse they got, right? And I've been guilty of that as well myself. But the point is that was the one big thing, right? I went in there with an open mind and accepted what he said, what it would take to be successful, and I accepted that as truth. Number 2, once I actually, once I accepted that, then I actually had to do the job, right? I actually had to perform. And it's a lot harder than you think, because it's one thing to be able to hear a YouTube video that, Alex Hormozi, talks about, or you have to do this and this to sell, or you have to have this kind of work ethic, or you hear Patrick Bet-David, right, create this great video on work ethic and discipline and all this good stuff, and you get pumped up and motivated. But it's one thing to listen to it, and it's another thing to actually apply it. And in general, I would say that, there's a big distance between those two. Big distance between those two, generally speaking, right? So in my case, I was able to actually do it. I had to make cold calls. I'd never cold called before. Not easy to cold call. If you've ever cold called, you know that it's not easy. Maybe at first it's exciting and exhilarating, but after you get yelled at a few times, or you get hung up on a few times, or get cussed out a few times, you're done. Right? You're ready to quit, right? At some point, it's a little too much. What ended up happening is that I went through that roller coaster ride, but I stuck with it, and I stuck with it, and I stuck with it, and I stuck with it. And I was able to stay motivated and stay pumped up, which is something that in his office was lacking. In fact, he was able to see that I was able to hit the KPIs every week, right? Week after week, which the KPIs were you had to make a call, 100 calls a day. And this is back before, call tools or Mojo Dialer or any of these automated systems, right? You have to actually dial the numbers from a big giant book it was a book with nothing but apartment building owners, right, in Southern California, broken down by city and by street. So had to just dial manually, 8 hours a day. It was not easy. It wasn't fun. It wasn't glamorous, but I did it, and I was able to consistently hit those 100 a day. And what made it hard too was that if somebody hung up on you right away, then it didn't count, right? His system that he had, and at that time, that was the most sophisticated system. It was able to keep track of calls, but the only way it would count your call was if you were able to stay on the call for at least 20 seconds, approximately 20 seconds. So you had to be able to kind of, talk to somebody for a bit in order for it to count. And then because I had that kind of discipline, what he did is that he used me as an example, right? To elevate the level of the office, to show the rest of the office, look, we have to step it up. If he's able to, if Ramon is able to hit 100 calls a day, every day, then why can't you guys, right? What's so hard about it? You know what I mean? He's doing it. You can do it as well. And he used different words, right? But it worked. We brought up the level of the office. He hired more people. Yeah. Anyways, but through having that type of discipline, I came across a lot of deals. But if you know anything about commercial real estate, and the same is true with residential, but more so with commercial, I think, you come across a lot of deals, and you start negotiating a lot of deals. But the fact that you've started negotiating them and you get them in the pipeline doesn't mean that they're actually gonna come out at the other end of the pipeline, right? That they're gonna close. First off, with commercial real estate, it takes longer. It's not 30 days. Usually it'll be longer, 60 days, 90 days, depending on the deal. It could be much longer, and that's a long time. Number of things can go wrong during that time that could cause that deal to fall out of contract, and then you lose the deal, and then you got to go on to the next one. So in my case, right, because I was diligent, I had a lot of deals, you know what I mean, that I was negotiating and talking to, and finally got one under contract, and I developed a good relationship with the owner of the property, developed a good relationship with the gentleman that was buying the property, was able to keep the deal together. There were a few hiccups throughout, just like there always is, and my broker helped me out, right, with negotiating and keeping the deal together, and we had to kind of make some concessions, right, during the deal, to use some of the commission money to make people happy and all that. But the point is that we got it closed. And in record time, right? Because most people in the office were taking about a year to close their first deal. For me, I was able to get my first deal closed within, I want to say it's approximately about 6 months, approximately 6 months by the time it was all said and done. But it was a great experience. It was a great journey. Like I said, it was one of the things that I learned, right, also, and I've kind of alluded to this as well already, is that when you do have a deal, right, that you think it's going to go through, right, you put it in the pipeline, the beginning of the pipeline, one end of the pipeline, you can't put all your hopes and dreams on that one deal. You have to keep going. And that's something that now, right, I have a business, and that's something that we struggle with our guys, right, and gals, where they get excited about one deal that they have and they think it's going to go through, and then they stop working on everything else. They stop generating new leads. They stop pursuing new leads. They put all their energy and the focus on that one deal, and you got to understand that sometimes things go wrong, and you can fix them many times. A lot of times you can fix them, but sometimes there's nothing you can do about it. Deals fall through, and if all you've been doing is putting all your time and energy on that one deal, it's pretty discouraging if it falls through and then you got nothing left, right? You have to start from scratch with another deal, and you know it's going to take at least another 60 to 90 days to get that one closed, and there are no guarantees that it'll close, right? What I did, right, when I had that deal, in fact, even before I got that deal under contract, right, that first one I closed, it was a 24-unit apartment building. The seller was a prosecutor in LA County, and the buyer was a gentleman that was retired. He was in his 60s, was looking to buy a newer apartment building that wouldn't have a lot of issues, because he had some older stuff, and he was trying to trade, right, for newer ones, do 1031 exchanges. Anyways, but one of the things that, even before I got that deal under contract, one of the things that I had already had several deals that I was negotiating that I already put in the pipeline, and just like I described to you guys, in that process of closing that 24-unit deal, I had several deals that fell through, right, that just fell apart for one reason or another during that time, and even before that, right? So I think that's important. I think that's something that not enough people talk about, and it's something that's just natural human tendency. People want to they get one under contract, and then they don't want to go back to cold calling, right? Because after you got that first one, you worked hard to get the first one, it's so easy to just kick back and go, all right, let me just babysit this one from beginning to end, and it'll go fine, and I'll make this much, and you know what I mean? The numbers are big, right? The commissions are big, but you can't. You got to go back to the grind, and that's what I did, and I was disciplined that way. And like I said, that was why I was able to be, have some, relatively speaking, I had some success as a young commercial real estate agent in California, Southern California. Hopefully that was helpful to you guys. Hopefully you learned a couple things. I look forward to seeing you guys in my next video. So, thanks.